Stay tuned to Cardinal Television. Commotion is up next. Hello everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of our pop culture debate show, Commotion. I'm your host, Sarah Francati. The rules of Commotion are as follows. I will offer up questions and topics of discussion for our three panelists to rant, rave, and debate about. At the end of the program, the panelist who has offered the best arguments throughout the show will be declared the winner, as chosen by myself. The winner will be offered 30 seconds of face time to talk about whatever is on their mind. So, let me introduce you to our panelists today. First, we have Chase Reeves. Next up, we have Evan Bordas. And last but not least, Jake Tinker. Now, let the commotion begin. Donald Trump is in the news yet again. Recently, his rallies in Chicago and Raleigh have become violent, with the number of Trump supporters clashing with protesters. In fact, the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office attempted to file charges against Trump, claiming he was inciting riots and violence. Though charges ended up not being filed, what is your opinion on the violence at these Trump rallies, and should Trump be held accountable for the injuries? Evan?
I think this is completely unacceptable, and it's completely unacceptable that he is a candidate in this election, not just that he's winning the polls. I think it's the rhetoric he's using against immigrants and Muslims is really horrible. And I think one of the worst things that he said was, it was during a Boston protest. One of the Trump supporters beat up this immigrant with a stick and then proceeded to urinate on him. And Trump, after that, issued a statement that all of his supporters have been so supportive of him and so passionate about him. And I think it was just really wrong to issue the statement at that time. He's sort of like disguising these things as not being hateful rhetoric, but really I think they definitely are.
Chase, what would you have to say?
I would have to agree with him that he's bringing out this passion in people, but I don't think that it's all completely his fault. I think it's partially that these supporters are getting out of hand, beating up people on multiple occasions. It's just, I just don't like the way he carries himself, the way he talks, how he loves people or hates things, and it's just too much for our supporters and voters to handle, and that's just dividing us. So I think he should be held responsible for it.
Now, when I say this, I do not support. I basically hate everything that comes out of his mouth. But there is an amount of responsibility you have to hold yourself to. You cannot blame someone if you're going to act out and just do incredibly stupid things. You can't blame him for what you do. I mean, it's no different than blaming a violent video game for making violent children. You can't say, as an adult, if you're going to go to a rally to support someone, that, oh, because he said this, I'm going to get into a fight with someone because they have a different view than me. That's totally immature. You need to have a little bit more control of yourself if you're going to go to things like this. I mean, this is about choosing our future leader. If we're going to do this when they're just campaigning, what are we going to do when election day rolls around? So it's just, you can't hold him responsibility. There has to be personal responsibility.
So you don't think that anything he is saying at these riots, though, is initiating the response from the crowd?
It is initiating it because obviously there's differing views. When you say things like this, there are going to be conflicting views. But you have to hold yourself. I mean, it's almost kind of a mentality of kind of turning the other cheek. People are not going to always agree with you. If people always agreed with you, the world would be boring. I'm not saying fights need to break out. I'm just saying it's okay to disagree, but don't let it turn into a fist fight.
But don't you think he should have at least apologized for all these people's actions, telling them that this is not acceptable, which he has not done so far?
you've listened to his speeches. Does that honestly sound like a man that's going to apologize for what he does? He's
No,
just
of
going to
course
go
not.
He's just going to go out there and do his thing. And honestly, if things like this happen, he's going to get more publicity. It may not be what he intended, but why apologize? I mean, if you're going to be this person and all this passion is being brewed up at your campaign, it's basically free publicity every time you walk out. So it just helps him. There's no need to apologize. So, I mean, if you're going to say something, just say it with the conviction, I guess.
So do you think all of these riots and all of these anti-Trump is actually helping him in his campaign?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, you're just, by bringing this forward, people are going to cover it, people are going to talk about it, and then all of a sudden one person knows about it, then 10 people know about it, then 100 people know about it. So then all of a sudden people not paying attention, they're going to know about this. And now it's just causing this bigger problem, and it's going to lead to Trump just staying around.
You can go ahead.
I'm just saying, I just think he's perfected what Kanye and the Kardashians have done. How they quickly get a hold of the media and use the social media and every publicity stunt they can get to get more attention towards them.
Yeah, I think that was a good point, Chase. All right, next question we have. So in a surprise move on Monday, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced a major withdrawal of its forces from the war-ridden nation of Syria. The Syrian government, which is strongly supported by Russia, maintains a tense ceasefire agreement with the Syrian rebel forces. Though peace talks have begun between the Syrian regime and the rebels, the country is still very unstable. With that in mind, what do you think Putin's motive is for pulling his troops from Syria? Chase?
I think it's just him realizing that it's not their country. If they need to protect their own troops and protect their own lives and their own wealth, they just need to pull out, and I think that's what they're doing. But leaving it in an unstable condition, I don't know what they're thinking about that. I mean, it's not their fight to begin with, but I don't know the situation over there, how crucial it's getting, but I don't know about leaving it in an unstable state like that.
I think it's for quite a different reason. The former president of Russia had a very strong relationship with the old Assad, Hafez al-Assad, and I think President Putin wants to strengthen the relationship between Bashar al-Assad and himself, because Syria has a lot to offer. They do have some amount of oil, and they've also historically been connected with Russia, ever since World War II. During the Arab Cold War, Russia strongly supported them. They helped establish a communist party there. And I think this is all to establish relationship between Assad and Russia.
I mean, personally, I think he's just trying to kind of take the tension. This has been a long war. It's kind of just getting to a point where they kind of just want to try and relieve some of the tension. So I think what he's trying to accomplish here is maybe just release a little bit of the tension, maybe let them get framework for trying to rebuild, and then maybe go back in and help. But I think at this point he's just trying to, he doesn't really want to add more fuel to the fire at this point. He doesn't want to make this more of a tense situation because he thinks, okay, if we stay in this war, it's probably only encouraging it. So let's back out, let's let them kind of resolve their situation, and should things get out of control and kind of crumble, they might be right back in there to help them.
Evan, would you agree with that?
I think that's part of it, but I think a lot of it is also personal incentives for Russia. I think they think it would help them a lot in the long run to still maintain that close connection between Syria and themselves that they've established since World War II. But I do think they want it to be a more stable place, and I think that they truly hate ISIS. But I think they also dislike the Syrian rebel forces because they're trying to overthrow this regime that they've befriended with over such a long period of time.
It does kind of go to what you're saying. If you kind of think of it from almost a country and a kind of business stand, if you go in there, it's this unstable place. You can't really do business in a war zone almost, you know?
Yeah,
You risk the chance of getting shot at, you risk the chance that you get mistaken or you get thrown in jail. So from a business perspective, you almost kind of want to let the place calm down, kind of see if you can get it to rebuild and make it a safer place. You know, open up the communication. Like you said, have good relations. I mean, it's hard if the leaders get along, but you're still involved in this massive war. So.
Yeah, it's on the coast, which has such a good potential to be such a good trading route across the Mediterranean, especially since they do have some amount of oil, but it's just been chaos there. That's why they haven't been able to create solid trading routes or anything.
Chase, do you have anything to add in?
I got nothing. These guys covered it. They got it.
All right. Well, now we are seeing some commotion here, and I'm liking where this is going. But stay tuned. More is up next on Commotion.
Weight loss, it's one of the many ways to fight osteoarthritis pain. For more information on managing pain, go to fightarthritispain.org.
And we are back. Now, Sarah Palin is back on the campaign trail for Donald Trump. However, she is receiving heat after speaking at a Trump rally in Tampa Bay on Monday, where she referenced that recent protest at Trump rallies as a form of punk-ass little thuggery. Palin has been known to put her foot in her mouth before she has gone too far but has she gone too far this time with her thuggery comment, especially since it seems to be veiled shot at black protesters? Jake, let me hear.
She's definitely gone too far this time. I mean, it's ridiculous. How many times can you go in front of the media, make an absolute fool of yourself just saying these ridiculous statements and not expect people to say, okay, you've definitely gone too far this time? I mean, she is supposed to be out there as just one of those people that's supposed to be able to go out in front of the people, be able to give a speech, and just walk away, not draw too much negative attention to herself. There's such a thing as attention and then just really negative attention that she always seems to garnish whenever she comes out to speak.
I agree. Evan, what are your thoughts here?
I think she's just a terrible person for saying that. She also mentioned that these people are taking away the First Amendment right. I don't know how. I think what she's getting at is these people are trying to disrupt the Trump speech. And I think this is pretty much the equivalent of saying you should be in jail for disagreeing with the First Amendment. And yeah, I think it's pretty clear that she was referring to black people. And she's just done so many terrible things. I've heard that she shoots wolves from helicopters in her home state of Alaska. And she's pretty much a Neanderthal redneck.
Okay, Chase, what would you say in response?
Well, going back to what Tink was saying about the negative and like all the attention that she brings, isn't that what Trump and the Republican Party is what they're trying to do to gain support? Isn't that what you were saying before when we were talking about Donald Trump?
Right, but that's what I'm saying. She's garnering attention, but this is negative attention. No one wants to be connected to a comment about little thuggery. I mean, obviously Trump, when he goes out and he makes his horrible statements, that's just as bad, but what I'm saying is based on who Trump is, people buy into that. Whenever Sarah Palin says things like this, there is always backlash. So I don't know if that's it's almost kind of people are contradicting what they're saying. Like, it's okay for Trump to say it, but when someone else is saying it, no, that's wrong.
But I see it as our generation will feel like, yeah, that's wrong. That's totally wrong to say, something like that. But older generations might not see it that way. They might agree with what she's saying. And back to what you were saying about the First Amendment, when they're saying that they're stopping, that Trump's Trump's protesters are complaining about the rallies stopping their freedom of speech. Aren't they trying to stop the rallies from speaking? Like, aren't they trying to stop what they're trying to convey to these supporters?
Well, I think that comparing this to freedom of speech is wrong because both these sides are just trying to voice their opinion. This is on both sides freedom of speech. There's no one side that has more of a freedom of speech than another or is violating freedom of speech.
But it is an event for Trump, and like it's his rally. He's there to give a speech. Aren't these protesters stopping that freedom of speech?
They're just trying to put in their 2 cents. Most of these people aren't that respectful. They're just shouting. I know you may have heard in the news that there was one Muslim protester who was very peaceful. She knelt down before a prayer rug and said, "Salam, Mr. Trump," which means peace, Mr. Trump, in Arabic. And he had her kicked out. He also had somebody kicked out in Vermont. It was negative 20 degrees outside. Didn't even get him a chance to get their coat, and he didn't even apologize for that. I think it's just terrible how oppressive Trump is to these people.
Well, they are trying to stop his rallies and what he's trying to accomplish. I can see that.
But don't be cruel to them.
He's not being cruel. If these people are, not the examples that you gave, but that's the minority. Like most of these protesters that are going in there are going in there on a mission to disrupt this rally.
All right, thank you guys. So it is that time of the year again. March Madness is upon us, and college basketball excitement is about to hit a fever pitch. However, this college hoop season has been anything but predictable. Many of the top teams have suffered multiple losses, which makes the field seemingly more even matched than ever before in recent memory. Now, the big question is, who do you have in your Final Four and why? Chase?
I'll start it off. I have West Virginia playing, who's the 1 seed on that other bracket? I think it's UNC. Is it UNC in that another bracket?
Yeah, North Carolina.
Okay. So I have those two, and I have Kansas and Wichita State in my fourth.
Evan?
For me, I have Michigan, I've got Oklahoma, Kansas, and North Carolina. And I picked Michigan to win the whole thing against Kansas because I think Denzel Valentine's an incredible player. He's an incredible three-point shooter and just an incredible offensive player. And I think that Michigan State is definitely a stronger team, both offensively and defensively, than Kansas.
Jake?
So I picked Kansas, Duke, Michigan State, and then Indiana. I think Kansas mainly because there is no one in their bracket to stop them. They're 2 seeds Villanova, they're 4 seeds California. So it's right from the start, that's just a weak competition. Then with Duke, because there's been so much parity in this earlier season, there are teams that aren't where they usually are. Like Duke, where they're usually towards the top at 1 and 2, and Kentucky, where they're up towards 1 and 2. Those guys are now 4 seeds. So as opposed to playing like the 8 seed in the second round, now you have a matchup with either a 5 or a 12 if you advance. So your path to the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 gets so much easier when you're a better team, but you're down from where you usually are. And then you have Michigan State and Indiana, who have probably tougher brackets than Kansas and Duke, but I think Indiana's just one of those teams that comes out, they're ready to shoot the ball, they're poised to make a run at any team at any time, and they kind of just had a disappointing Big Ten tournament. So when it comes to that, teams love to come out during March Madness and just shoot the ball, and it doesn't matter what you did during the regular season. At this time, anything can happen. We've already seen 2 12 seeds get the upset, so.
I never got to say who my winner was. I had West Virginia winning it all against Kansas. I just think they have a really athletic front court with some big guys that have some big muscles that are going to manhandle some people down there. And they have a great coach, different style of play, and I think they're about to take it all this season.
but I can't agree with that. I mean, you look at it, you have to get through teams like UNC, you have to get through Kentucky, Indiana, North Carolina.
All beatable teams.
They're beatable, but what those teams can do is, well, especially UNC, they're just bigger than everyone. They force you into jump shots, and that's one area where West Virginia's weak. Sure, they can rebound. Sure, they can be a physical presence on the inside. But if you're going against North Carolina's size, you're eventually just going to keep backing out, and you're going to start shooting from the perimeter, and all it takes is that off game, and all of a sudden you're out because North Carolina beat you where you're supposed to be at your best.
But UNC might have an off game as well. You never know.
Right, but they can still go inside. They don't care about the size. Playing in the ACC, there have been some teams that have had size, some teams that haven't. So for them, it's kind of just, it's a different approach for each game. And I think with West Virginia, a lot of what goes into theirs is they need game planning. And when you get into tournaments like this, you don't really have a lot of time to prepare. It's kind of just, okay, this is kind of what they do. We got one day to prep. Let's go out there and execute.
Evan, would you agree with what both have been saying?
Yeah, I think Jake's right in the fact that they do a lot of times force teams to take threes, and they are definitely a big, strong team with more experience. And yeah, I'm thinking North Carolina's gonna win. Well, at least get to the final four.
All right.
Don't count them out.
Well, we are getting a little commotional here in the studio, and I can definitely feel the heat. Now, the last two questions are sure to end the show with a bang, so stay tuned.
You've messed up your son's haircut.
Mom?
Do you A, try to fix it,
Like it never happened.
B, work with what you've got, or C, show solidarity?
Thank you, baby.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Welcome back to Commotion. I am excited to share with you the final two questions. So earlier this week, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences apologized for the jokes that Oscar host Chris Rock made about Asian people during his monologue. The offensive statement came during his comments about the Oscars accounting firm. Rock had the firm's most dedicated, accurate, and hard-working representatives, and then 3 Asian kids walked onto the stage carrying briefcases and wearing tuxedos. The joke played on the stereotypical portrayal of Asians as extremely smart, studious, and hardworking. Do you think this was actually racism or satire? Also, do you think the Academy should have apologized for it when it was Chris Rock who made the joke? Evan?
Okay, so first of all, do you think Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and Ken Jeong from The Hangover fit into the stereotype? We are talking about a race of over 1 billion people who are all different, have different personalities, and I think Chris Rock was really wrong to portray them in this light. Another thing is that a lot of us were asking whether Chris Rock would make this about all minorities not getting nominated for an Oscar or just black people who didn't get nominated for an Oscar. I think this is a very clear statement that this is just about black people who didn't get nominated for an Oscar. And I think it was just really wrong of him to do this. And also he declined to comment after this, which I think shows that this is the effect that he intended for this joke to play out.
See, I don't see it as racism. I think people say, okay, what he just said was offensive, and they immediately want to go and slap racism on it. It was just a joke. I mean, we see stand-up comedians making jokes like that all the time. Sure, there's some racistness to it. Sure, there's some stereotypical thing to it. But people laugh at it. People appreciate jokes like that. Chris Rock's been known to just tell jokes like that. So I really don't see the big deal here.
My take on this is, like, he's a comedian. He's going to tell jokes. Some of them are going to hit people the wrong way. And I know I like to joke around sometimes. My jokes may get a little too far, but it's just a joke. Like, he didn't mean anything by it. But I If he should have apologized for it, I don't think he should have apologized. I think the network did the right thing by apologizing for him because they're the ones that broadcasted it. But I do not see anything wrong with this.
I think you're right, though, Chase. There's too many people in this world. Almost everyone is going to get offended by, at least at one point, by something you're going to say. So I think rather than just stress out about, okay, this is going to offend this, such and such, this is going to offend such and such, this is going to... Just go out there, let your material speak, and, you never know what's actually going to happen until you actually deliver the joke. In his mind, it probably seemed really funny at the time, but to some people, they're like, wait, stop. That's kind of offensive what you just did there. So, to be honest, I think it was just a shot at satire, and the way some people interpreted it is as racist.
Well, why didn't he have satire for white people? Isn't this his whole routine? Isn't it supposed to be about like how Hollywood is dominated by white people? I think the thing that was so offensive about it is that it was a clear statement that this was about not having enough black nominees, instead of not having enough minority nominees.
So why would
really
he take
made
a
that clear with
shot?
that.
So why would he take a shot at Asian people then instead of white people?
Well, I think he should have taken a shot at white people. There's a lot more you can make fun about them, which he has been doing kind of for the whole night. But still, Asians are part of this minority that, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot you can make fun about me. So, yeah.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying we're both white.
Yeah, all three of us.
Yeah.
4.
Everybody in this room, I think backstage. Well, okay, anyways, that's beside the point. He really should have supported his minorities instead of make fun of their stereotypes. And I think this sort of gives the stereotype that Asians are not cool, which they definitely are. I've got some very cool Asian friends, very funny Asian friends, definitely. Some that are, I know, harder working friends than some of my Asian friends. So, yeah.
But that's not what he's saying. If you look at this is almost kind of either one of three things. One, he was trying to make a joke. 2, he was trying to pay back a compliment. Some people are kind of flattered by that stereotype. Others take it as offense. It depends on the person, like I said. And I mean, you watch any comedian when they do stand-up. There are jokes out there. There are offensive jokes. And people laugh at them. People of the race that are supposed to be offended by it laugh at it. So, I mean, you can't take offense to every joke. If you did, we'd never laugh again. That's all comedy is it's supposed to make you feel better. It's supposed to make you laugh. If you're just a critic about everything, then why even go to the show?
All right, guys, thank you. So on Sunday, Jeff Miller, the NFL's vice president, admitted that there was a clear connection between playing football and chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, the degenerative brain disease caused by repeated collisions that have been considered responsible for taking the lives of many professional football players. For many years, the NFL have denied the connection between tackle football and traumatic injuries, and many football players say that they were aware of the concussions, but never made aware of such terminal illnesses, such as CTE. So why do you think the NFL took so long to admit the connection? What do you think they can do to lower the amounts of the disease found in their football players? Chase?
I'm kind of seeing this, I'm taking this as everyone that's in part of football, from Pee-wee to high school to even in the NFL, everyone that's a part of it, coaches, players, is pretty much promoting the NFL because the NFL has a monopoly on the whole game, and they should be taking some part in reparations for players that get injured with head injuries, or maybe also like a pension that could be set up for players that put in a lot of years in the NFL and paid their dues and did right by the NFL, because they're getting a lot of money off these players, and it's just not right because they're putting their body on the line every day. I mean, I do it at collegiate level, and I mean, I've been playing for as long as I can remember, and I don't have that bad of a brain, I hope.
Evan?
So I think this is the decision of Jeff Miller to not admit it till now is about the equivalent of the Pope's decision to not admit that the world was round instead of flat till 1992. I think it's horrible that, like, with all the scientific information going around, definitely proving that CTE has a relationship to football, that he decided until now to reveal this. And yeah, I really agree with you that they should not have a monopoly on, like, Little League football and all these, basically any type of football.
I'm not saying that they have a monopoly. They have a monopoly on professional football.
Well, yeah.
So, and like anybody that plays football is pretty much promoting that game. You know, they're doing something to spread it. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
like football players are usually portrayed as like super masculine. They're muscular. They're like the stereotypical athlete. Which, yeah.
I mean, I played football for a while. 9 years. And to be honest, there's not really much you can do with a thing like this. When you're a lineman, almost every play you're butting heads with someone else on the defensive line, or you're climbing and you're trying to go hit a linebacker who's on the move. So there's times where you're just going to hit your head. It's continuous. It's just a part of the game. There's no going slow in football. There's kind of just these moments where you're running full speed and what happens, happens. Personally, when you're a lineman, though, it's smaller hits. But when you get to like quarterbacks who are getting hit by defensive linemen every play, or wide receivers colliding at midfield, that's when the more dangerous hits happen.
Yeah.
So to be honest, it's one of those things where they weren't quite sure right away that it was the hits, and they didn't want to put this information out there and cause a panic on something that they weren't sure. This is almost kind of the NFL's boogeyman. It's kind of this big, scary thing that if a lot of people found out, and even if it wasn't true, it scares a lot of people out there. Because there are coaches from the NFL, like Mike Ditka, who say, I would never allow my kids in football, regardless.
You're talking, that's the boogeyman. Just look up the stats or surveys or whatever you can find on how many players take pain pills and are addicted to them. Because that's also a dark part of the NFL that people don't see.
And I wrote a paper on CTE. It was probably about 5 years ago now, but we're talking about 5 years ago, and I was able to find this information pretty easily. It's not like it was guarded. It's not like you had to go deep to look for this. It was pretty open and blaring 5 years ago. People just weren't drawing the connection. There was this horrible disease. It seemed to only center around football players. It's just people weren't putting two and two together originally. So it's been there for a while. It's almost like when they finally figured out that headers in soccer were being connected with ALS. So.
Okay, well, that's all the time that we have for today, which also means it's time for me to decide who this week's Commotion champion is. All three panelists were on fire tonight, but there can only be one winner. So after some careful consideration, our winner is Jake. Congratulations! You now have 30 seconds to tell our viewers whatever you want. But first, we need to remind our viewers that you can catch Commotion and other CTV programs on Time Warner Cable Channel 12. Now, without further ado, take it away, Jake.
I'd just like to say it's great to be on the show again, earning my first win on Commotion. To everyone who's a sports fan, enjoy March Madness while it's here. It is one of the greatest times of year, and it'll carry us right over to Easter break. So from March Madness to being on vacation, life doesn't get much better.
Woo. Thank you for joining in at home. I'm Sarah Francotti, and we'll see you next time on Commotion.